Good news. Again, I'm Kent Menser. I'm out of Howard County, but I represent the Fort Meade Regional Growth Management Committee, which is 8 counties and 2 cities around Fort Meade. And also today I'll talk a little bit about Aberdeen. And I need the flipper. BRAC actually is Fort Meade growth, actually is regional growth, actually is state growth. We use BRAC as a recognized name, but the fact of the matter is talking about overall growth in the state as it involves military installations. I work for you. I work for you. We work for you. Use us. I'm funded by the Department of Defense. I work for the county exec in Howard County and also those 8 counties, but I work for you. So we're available literally 7 days a week, 18 hours a day to meet with you or your clients to talk about BRAC, talk about growth in this area. BRAC, Fort Meade growth, regional growth is not coming, it's here. It's not being held up, it's ahead of schedule. It's actually going to be more than the hype that you've heard, and we'll talk about that. Growth in the state. Usually you say BRAC to someone that's base, realignment, and closure, it's usually bad news. We're going to close your installation down. You're going to lose 5,000 jobs. With Maryland, thanks to the great work of our delegation and citizens across Maryland, we have 5 gainers in Maryland. The big ones are Aberdeen and Fort Meade. The lesser ones are Fort Detrick, Bethesda, which is Walter Reed Hospital's combining with Bethesda, and Andrews Air Force Base. But the big ones we'll talk about today are Aberdeen and Fort Meade. A couple slides on Aberdeen, just to show you that it's here, it is taking place, and they're ahead of schedule. It gives you an idea about some of the construction. This is phase 1. Over 5,000 personnel coming into Aberdeen, most from New Jersey, over the next year or so. Some are already here from New Jersey, Fort Monmouth. Gives you an idea, things are happening. Phase 2, you can see the dates. They must be completed by September 2011. So BRAC growth is happening. Gives you an idea about people. 2,000 over there, 2,000 right here, out of that 5,000, about 7,000 plus new jobs on Aberdeen. New jobs on Aberdeen. We'll talk about difference in jobs in just a minute. Let me talk about the Fort Meade region. It's a complicated slide, and I know you'll get copies of this if you'd like off the website, but also I'll send you copies. And I've got my cards up here, and I can send you copies of this presentation. Now, let's look at this from left to right. Today, Fort Meade has 40,000 employees on the installation. 40,000. About 85% of those are government civilians and contractors, and 15% or less are military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. 40,000 direct jobs today leads to 94,000 indirect and induced jobs. An induced or an indirect job is what? That's like an SAIC supports Fort Meade, or L3 or Booz Allen Hamilton supporting Fort Meade. Those are indirect jobs. I'm an induced job. I don't work on Fort Meade, I don't support Fort Meade, but I'm here today because of Fort Meade growth. Induced. More teachers, more policemen, more folks at McDonald's, those are induced jobs. So today, 134,000 jobs are credited to Fort Meade. Direct, indirect, and induced. Let's talk about growth. BRAC's the movie star. BRAC this, BRAC that, okay? The fact of the matter with Fort Meade, BRAC is about 6,000 new jobs coming to Fort Meade between now and September 2011. The real growth, the next piece of that, BRAC is one of 4 components of growth. Other growth is 2,000, just normal growth on Fort Meade. National Security Agency, of the 40,000 people who work on Fort Meade, NSA employs probably around 25,000 of those 40,000. NSA, we project growing during this 5 to 7 year time frame about 4,000. That's a low ball. Because we know that last year NSA grew by about 1,400 and it continues to grow. So the real growth on Fort Meade is related to the National Security Agency, or the biggest growth, even though I only show 4,000 right there. EUL, Enhanced Use Lease. What's that? That's where the government can lease land to a developer or private contractor, and Trammell Crow has won the right to negotiate with the government for 160 acres on Fort Meade. Now, according to their environmental impact statement, they plan to build up to 2 million square feet of commercial space for up to 10,000 employees. But the economy, that's been 3.5 years ago, probably 3 years. And the economy, of course, as you know better than I do, has slowed up. That may slow or even possibly even jeopardize the EUL. So that's the projection right now. Now, what's not shown here, before I get to Cyber Command, is, for example, again, Fort Meade influence, the National Business Park, which is across 295 from Fort Meade. Today, it's about 7,500. They're projecting the size of that will grow to up around 20,000 plus, again, in support of Fort Meade. That's not on Fort Meade, next to Fort Meade. Now, the biggest and latest news related to Fort Meade growth is Cyber Command. Is Cyber Command. And that's a new command coming to Fort Meade, and I'll talk more about that in just a minute. So when you add the jobs up here, you see a total of 24,000 new direct jobs. So Fort Meade's population, we're projecting, will grow to about 60,000 plus on the installation. Now, that's mostly all good news. Now, what's the bad news about that? They all own cars, okay? There's no mass transit on Fort Meade right now. Today, there's 35,000 cars a day going to Fort Meade. If we don't do a thing, it'll jump to about 60,000 cars a day to go on Fort Meade, and guess what? It won't work, and we'll talk about that. You can see indirect induced jobs, the growth. I'll go on. This is the group that I represent today, again, the Fort Meade Regional Growth Management Committee. These counties and these organizations have banded together to work together on two areas. First is relevant information, actionable information, information you can use. That's our responsibility. And the second is impacts and opportunities. The impacts of this growth, but more importantly, I'm here today, the opportunities this growth brings to this area. Fort Meade today, 40,000, sends over $10 billion a year into the regional economy. I know for a fact, they've told us, that Fort Meade sends $2.5 billion a year into Howard County. $1.6 billion in contracts and $800 million in salaries. It's the largest employer of Howard County residents, Fort Meade is. Not the largest employer in Howard County, it's in Anne Arundel County. We're talking about region here and regional effect. We're working on an environmental impact statement right now with the National Security Agency that calls for over 5.8 million square feet of new construction in support of NSA. These are boom times from the defense standpoint in this region. And in fact, a senior executive from NSA told us, this is the golden age of the National Security Agency because of things like cyber warfare, and information assurance. Cyber Command. We know it's going to come. It hasn't been officially announced for a number of reasons, but it's 100% fact it's going to come. Just hasn't been publicly announced yet, even though Barbara Mikulski and others have talked about the numbers and so on. The top line here, or top paragraph here, is a quote from the current NSA director. It basically says that cyber warfare has taken the place of air warfare and sea warfare. In the past, it was dominance of the sea, followed by dominance of the air. Now, in the future, and you read the New York Times, the Washington Post, it's about cyber. It's about cyber warfare. Cyber Command, according to Senator Mikulski, is going to bring 15,000 new jobs into Maryland, into this region. That's above the BRAC. And again, some quotes, well, the NSA director, who's now a 3-star general, will become a 4-star general. And this is a big deal from a number of standpoints, not only from the status standpoint, but from the policy-making standpoint. So if you were going to design a military installation, and what we'd like to have on it, you know, not a lot of noise and guns and those kind of things, but the kind of employees we have on the installation of technology and education and high salaries, this kind of installation that Fort Meade is today.
When you buy or refinance a home, there are big ifs hanging over you. If you're choosing the right kind of loan, if your bank will always be there for you. So you'll be glad to learn the company that helps with life's ifs, MetLife, is a top provider of home loans. MetLife Home Loans professionals are skilled, straightforward, and backed by a trusted name. For all your home finance needs, let us handle those ifs. Visit MetLifeHomeLoans.com.